Hello, and welcome to the CSTA Wyoming podcast, the show for all things computer science in the WYO. I'm Megan Garnhart, the CSTA Wyoming president and a Wyoming high school computer science teacher. In today's episode, we will be speaking with Laura Baker from Cyber Wyoming Alliance. Hi, Laura. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me
Uh,
today, Megan.
Absolutely. We're so glad you're here. Will you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background?
Sure. I'm Laura Baker, and I am the president of the Cyber Wyoming Alliance. It's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. And I actually have a little bit of a PowerPoint to tell you about what that does. So if it's okay, I'll share my screen and we'll get that going.
Yes, please.
Okay. So so today I was going to focus on programs for educators, but I'm expecting that Megan, you might interrupt me here and talk about some other programs that I didn't really think of as educator programs, but you're using in your classroom too. So I'm going to talk about four major programs that we have. The Cyber in a Box School Video Challenge, the Lego Attack and Defense Models, the Teens Exploring Careers camp curriculum that you could use in your classroom, and then we try to bring a lot of outside programs to Wyoming for you, and we try to get them free or cheap, which is what we all like, right? So our focus is really cybersecurity awareness, education, and outreach. So of course we have educational programs for students and parents, as well as seniors at Cyber Wyoming Alliance. On the other side of our house, we have Cyber Wyoming, which really is a separate nonprofit, and it primarily focuses on businesses and business education and technical workforce education. So let's first talk about the Cyber in a Box School Video Challenge. This is a lot of fun. This is the team from Buffalo High School a couple years ago. Each team gets $100 in t-shirts to put together a cyber safety video. All ages are welcome. This is more than one team. Usually teams are about 5 people. And the registration, just to be aware, we usually send out a memo through the Wyoming Department of Education. We have it on our website. We send it out in social media. You can also sign up for our alerts to know when the registration is coming out, but it's usually between late August or September and before November 1st. Videos are due March 1st, and we have a virtual premiere usually mid-April. This year it's on April 18th. So if you'd like to attend that virtual premiere and see some of these videos, that would be great. And then we try to do local premieres at a local library or a senior center, because that gets the community involved. And you can see here up in the corner, these are some kids that were presenting their video and talking about what they learned in front of their entire community. Their parents were there, their peers were there, some of their teachers were there, and it was at the Laramie County Library in Cheyenne. All ages are welcome. This kid was one of the youngest ones that's ever participated, but we had younger since then. And they just have a lot of fun. This was a brother and sister team. So it doesn't have to be in the school through a teacher. It could also be a parent that sponsors it. I just need somebody to write the check to. We do sometimes have challenge topics. And this year's challenge topic was medical Internet of Things. So it could be your grandpa's insulin pump. And is it wireless connected, or a heart monitor? It could be an MRI machine if you decide to go tour the hospital, or maybe it's the badge door systems that works on the network. So there's many different things that they could have chosen, and it's a lot of fun to make the video. But they're supposed to research the topic, make the video, submit it, and then we have a fun judging event. Nobody gets first, second, or third. It's more like, this was the most scary. This was the most disturbing. This was the most amazing. This was the most dramatic. This was the most amazing acting. So things like that. We just make sure that each person gets something good said about their video. But, and the $100 can be for pizzas, for video editing sessions, or it can be for software editing, programming software. So it could be for anything. Any questions about that one, Megan?
No, I love it. Actually, my students and I have looked at this multiple years in a row, and I had a kiddo who was going to do it last year and then ended up getting busy with his create task for AP. But I keep trying to get some of them into it. I'm hopeful one of these years.
It's fun. I mean, the kids really do have a good time, and we have some teachers that do it for their classes, so they actually register early and will finish that first semester and turn in their videos early. Um, so, that's an option too. That's probably the biggest complaint about this program is it goes across semesters because a lot of computer science courses are just one semester. So if that's the case, just register early, start your kids on it early, and then turn your videos in early because you'll still get the t-shirts that you can hand out to them. We usually send those out in early February.
I
So
love that idea. And I actually and I hadn't even thought of it because that was kind of part of it in the past, but I now have a year-long cybersecurity course for my upper level students. So we would easily be able to slide it right in there.
there you go. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Um, the next one is the Lego attack and defense model. And, basically this is Legos, but if you look at these little wires here, they're wired to lights and to a Raspberry Pi and an attack and a defense computer. And the teacher gets a pretty large teacher's guide on how to use it. But the best part is it's free. You can check it out for an entire semester. So if the Legos break apart in transit in the suit, we pack them in this giant suitcase. You can kind of see here where the suitcase looks like. But if the Legos break apart, you can make them start putting them back together. You make them learn how to wire up the Raspberry Pi to the positive and the negative charges, which and then you make them learn how to do light networking because the Pi is attached to a switch or a router, and that is also attached to the two laptops. And you do get a teacher's cord to plug into one of your displays. So all you need is to get into the teacher to the actual Raspberry Pi itself without trying to get in through the attack and the defense computers. You have like the back end where you can get in as long as the kids don't change that default password, which you need to make sure they don't right at the beginning.
Right.
But it
Don't
teaches
get
Python programming because the attack and the defense programs are both in Python. And it also makes them think about, this is a wireless router. I wonder if the default password is still the one published. I'm going to see if I can get in and attack that way. And then the defense people are thinking the same thing. I wonder if it's the same. Maybe I should change that. And the attack people actually get a scenario. So for the hospital, we looked at a historic figure in radiology. And they were supposed to, and we made her a social media profile that was fake, of course. And they're supposed to try to guess her password based on past passwords and her social media profile. So it teaches them how to social engineer a little bit, which I think is good because if you learn how to do it, you know how to protect yourself.
That's
Um,
exactly.
yeah. So right now, the mailing costs are being covered by the Wyoming Community Foundation grant that provided this. If our fundraising goes well this summer, we will continue to have mailing costs covered. So the only potential cost on this is the mailing costs, and it can be a little bit expensive because these are big suitcases. So it can be anywhere from $65 to $90 depending on where we're shipping it to. So that's if fundraising goes well this summer for WYO Gives Day, we'll have it covered. But just so you know, that could be a potential cost. But you can still sign up, and then if you decide that cost isn't worth it, you can cancel and it can go to the next person. And we're going to have 8 models this fall for our teachers to check out. So there could be a waiting list, but so far I think we'll be okay with 8. Anyway, it's fun. These are really fun. And the Legos do draw people into the classroom.
That's really cool. And maybe you had mentioned this when you send them, is one suitcase like enough for a class, or is it better to have more than one suitcase, or it's like one covers a class?
Well, what I would do, it depends on how big your class is. If you have a class of 10 kids, split them into 5 and 5, one for the attack team, one for the defense team, and have them brainstorm that. And then they would each have their own laptop to try to get into the model. So they'd work collaboratively on the model to get it set up. And then when they hit attack and defense, you can really split them up a little bit. So that could be one model. Now, if you have a class of 20, sign up for 2 because you'll probably need it.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
awesome. Okay, so the next one is the Teens Exploring Careers Camp curriculum. And again, this can be used in the classroom. We tested this camp on high school girls last summer at Casper College, and it was so much fun. And we have 2 separate scenarios that you can download for free. One is the murder mystery, and that is to protect trade secrets in business. So it's usually over intellectual property. So that gets into, business ethics and intellectual property and data handling, as well as, one of the murder mysteries, the guy was killed because he was just a slob and kind of a jerk. And so it's also about, it's about coworkers and dysfunction in a business, which brings up a whole lot of ethical considerations that you can teach in your class. And you could do trust exercises like they do in business and bring that up as well. So there's a lot of neat stuff that you could do, especially as a business teacher, with that one. The other side is a mock hospital. And we actually have a whole lot of computers. I think we have 13 or 14 computers that we will lend you if you are a Wyoming school. We might ask you to put down a deposit for, breaking, but that's it. Outside of Wyoming, we do charge for that, but inside Wyoming, you can get them for free. And they actually have mock hospital software on it. And so you could run an actual billing department and the ER department with ER docs and radiologists and radiology techs and admitting. And you could have the other half of your class be the patients coming through. So you'd have 5 or 6 patients coming through, maybe over, you could do it over a week or so, and maybe teach them the software at the beginning and what their roles would be in that hospital. And then have the patients plan to come through, because we have the patient profiles that they can follow, like from a cut finger to a fake to a pregnancy that goes into pre-labor, but it turns out to be just Braxton Hicks, but just things like that. And you go through those, and they not only learn what it's like to use technology in a career setting, but in the middle of it, you go turn off the wireless router and now the computers go down and they get ransomware. And so the IT person runs around and says, shut down your computers, we got ransomware. And, you hear about these stories where IT people go and like pull wires out of the walls. So that's kind of what we want the IT person to do. And now they have to still see patients, but they don't have any software. And at the camp, some of the really cool things that happened were payroll went out, and the inequity of the radiology tech to the radiologist was just an outrage. And somebody else stole the Skittles, which were the drugs, from the pharmacist. So there was a pharmacy theft. And the HR person had to figure out how to write that up and deal with the pay inequity issue. And the admitting person was doing a heck of a lot of work compared to a couple of the other people. And she was getting paid like 18 bucks an hour compared to some of the doctors and stuff. They were working really hard, but they were getting paid a couple $100 an hour. So all that went on, ransomware hits, patients are still being seen. It really creates an interesting yet realistic situation. And there were so many other ethical considerations that also went along with the murder mystery and the ethics discussion that happened. So it is a fun environment. I would say if you decide to download the mock hospital and borrow the computers, try to borrow them for at least a month in your classroom and run the scenario, prep it up, talk about ethics, talk about the business, teach them the software, make sure they really understand it, and then have the patients go through that last week. And it'll be a lot of fun. The murder mystery is a little bit easier. It's low tech. The mock hospital is pretty high tech. So I kind of went through that, but here's some of the here's the pharmacist, and she was handing the Skittles to a patient. We had the email policies. Afterwards, we sat down and said, okay, so what policies, both in the employee manual and security policies, would have made this better for the hospital? And they came up with them, and they figured them out. And they came up with really, because they lived it, they came up with really good ones. And you know, this did change people's lives. We had a couple people, one person said she wanted to be a tattoo artist before, so afterwards she wanted to be a radiologist. So, and then this person wanted to be, go into HR afterwards. So it really did make a difference. And this is the huddle when they were trying to figure out what to do with ransomware. And then this picture in the middle is the murder mystery. And this is one of the nurses in the mock hospital taking care of a patient. We had ski patrollers and EMTs and drama students acting as the patients. So I'm not sure when this camp is actually going to run again, but I wanted to let you know that you can use this curriculum if you'd like. So any
That's
questions?
awesome.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
It's fun. It's definitely fun. And you don't have to worry about the computer setup because we've got those ready for you.
Which is so amazing.
Yeah. And then we have programs from outside of Wyoming that I wanted to let everybody know about. The University of Texas San Antonio has cyber threat defender cards, and these are from K to 3, and then 3 to 6th-ish, maybe 7th, and then 8th and up. And so they're age appropriate cards and educational worksheets, stories. They even have Alan Cyber come to hang out, which is like a Smokey the Bear, but he's about Alan. His name is Alan. So that's a lot of fun. And these are free. You can get a free teacher's pack for anybody if you go to cisutsa.edu. We've also got the Magic Capture the Flag. The next one is this April 20th. So if a teacher wants to put their class, put their class or a team into this on Saturday, April 20th, they need to let me know pretty quick. Today's the deadline, but if they really want to get in next week, I could get them in. So, but it's a puzzle challenge. So it's all ages, all abilities. They do recommend 7th and up. The 7th graders get a little frustrated. They probably should, I would say high school and up would probably be more appropriate, but it's really puzzles. And we've had some 7th grade teams, 7th and 8th grade teams place in the top 20, which isn't bad when you consider there are 50 schools going and most of them are in college. So then we've got the curriculum, all sorts of curriculum programs, Teach Cyber Ring. These are all on the cyberwyoming.org website. So you can go out and look at them under resources for educators. If you do find my program and choose educators, you'll see some videos about almost each one of these and including Ready for Cyber. Ring is nice because they'll even teach your class for you. So if you're struggling, if you're a school district and you're struggling to find somebody that can teach the class, Ring can do it. You just need a monitor in your classroom. Clubs, there's the Cyber Patriot Competition Program, Girls Who Code, Girl Security, all sorts of things like that. And then guest speakers, the Idaho National Lab has offered to send a guest speaker anytime, anywhere. You just tell them when and where and coordinate it with them so they can get there. And they can talk about, especially about critical infrastructure security, which I think they're pretty amazing. And they send some really dynamic people, and they have a mobile escape room that they're trying to get out too. So they might even be able to bring that mobile escape room with them. And then we also talked about in those educator resources, internships, pre-apprenticeships, youth apprenticeship, and apprenticeships. So those are all the ones on the educator resources page. I would highly recommend looking at that. I add to that whenever I hear of a new program. We'll do a little video, throw it on. So it does change periodically. If you check every quarter, you'll definitely get the updates. And then we do run a cybersecurity conference every year. Last year it was in Cheyenne at Cyber Cheyenne in mid-August. And usually students are free. So if you can bring a class, I don't know exactly when this is going to be yet, but if you can bring a class, just keep it in mind, especially if you're in the area, because they might enjoy it. So that is what I have. And I know you had some other ideas, Megan. Do you want to talk about those?
I do. I was like writing notes down and I know we're gonna publish this, but I'm so bad at going back and looking at stuff. So I like write stickies down so that I can like be looking at these because I love when we have folks on and I'm getting ideas as we go too. So thank you for that. I did. So I was telling Laura before we even got on here that I receive your emails that are sent out each week for the hacker brief files. And I use those in my class with my high school cybersecurity students. And the way I use them is I send them the hacker brief files that are Wyoming instances of cybersecurity issues that have happened recently. And they all are very recent. And I have my students choose, usually I'm like 3 to 4, depending on how many it is. And they have to read through it and they have to give me like a quick synopsis in their own words of what happened, and then I also ask them to tell me how they think this could have been prevented or defended. And that is the assignment that they get, and they have to choose 3 or 4 of them each week to do them. And it's just become so interesting every week to watch them see. And I was telling Laura as we started, as they get further into our curriculum, it's funny to start hearing their conversations as they're like, how did this trick someone? How would this even happen? And so it's just been really amazing. And it's great for them to see that this happens in our state I mean, literally weekly, there is new things coming out every single week. So I love using that. And then I've signed up for it, and it must just be your email. Where do they sign up for that? I'm not even sure I remember where I did, Laura.
Yeah, it's on our contact us page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And so I also got an email this week that had a blacklight website that shows, and you can explain this far better than me. So why don't you go ahead and explain?
So I think it was in the Hackers Brief. I think we decided to put that tool in the Hackers Brief because it was such a good uh, resource for learning what websites do with your private information. And so, for instance, we tested it on the New York Times because one of our staff members reads the New York Times, and they found, I think it was 22 or 29 instances of sharing their data with third parties. And then we tested it on our own website, and there's 0. I just want you to know, which is what we want. But then we went out and looked at some of other Wyoming companies, and there might be 1 or 2, and a lot of it was Google Analytics. So in Wyoming, if you look, and Google Analytics, of course, you're sharing that data with Google's because they're tracking your IP address as you come in and access the website to see how they can optimize that website better. So not all of these are nefarious, but
Mhm.
it does kind of give you an idea. This blacklight does give you an idea of some of the tools that are behind the website that you may not know about, like Google Analytics, and how they would be used in a good way, but how they could also be used if that was a phishing website to collect your information. And speaking of the Hackers Brief, so I was traveling on Tuesday and I was in 4 different airports. No, 3 different airports, 3 different airports. And I was texting my employees, but I was not on the Wi-Fi with my phone because I don't do that. And the next day I was spoofed. My personal cell phone number that I was texting my employees was spoofed. And it looked like me, and it rang, and this is going to come in through the Hackers Brief, but it'll be anonymous, but it rang and it looked like me, and my employee picked up and it said, press XYZ or a number or something to connect with Laura. And she said, well, that's weird. That Laura's phone has never done that before. So she hung up and called me direct. But the number looks exactly like mine.
That is just absolutely, that's so wild. My students and I have looked at exactly that because as soon as I became president for CSTA Wyoming and my email was listed online, my colleagues started getting email spoofs from my email that looked just like me. As soon as it was listed, they were able to start sending spoofs from me, which was so crazy. And I have to tell you, as you were talking about the black light and how it tracks, and you can look at that. I had to pull it up because we look at this frequently in my classes, including all the way back to my intro to computer science class. And this is why I was so drawn to that website when it showed up in my inbox this week. The high school computer science standards in Wyoming specifically have standards that relate to looking at the collection of data through automated processes that aren't even evident to their users, and like understanding the concerns with that. And that is like very specifically one of our standards. And then it also starts to look at those ethical impacts. So where are some of these being used ethically? But then because there's ethical use, where does that become a problem for us where it's no longer ethical? So this is why I was so drawn to it. And even with my intro to computer science classes, we will be using this specific website in the future years because this is what I have them look at. Do you feel comfortable with what this website is taking from you? And how cool that this will track that for you. So
Well,
some cool uses.
there's another one you might be interested in too. If you use it for that, it's called ImmunoWeb, IMMUNIWEB, and do a /dark web to get directly to it. And you can put in local businesses' website addresses, and you can do, I think, 2 and 24 hours for free. So you don't have to buy the tool or sign in or anything like that. But you can put that in, and they can find out if they're being impersonated. So if you have ABC Company .com and in Sheridan, for instance, and you put that in abccompany.com, and it has one come back as abdcompany.com, and it actually, or maybe it's .ca like Canada, or abccompany.ca for Canada, and it looks like your same homepage, you know you're being impersonated on the web. And if you are being impersonated because you don't own that domain, then you can contact the Federal Trade Commission and lodge a complaint, and you can contact the web hosting provider like GoDaddy or Bluehost or whoever it is, and lodge that complaint and say, this isn't me. And, they're impersonating my website. It's exactly the same homepage.
Wow.
And you can find out what's happening there. And we have seen businesses in Wyoming that are impersonated, as well as churches. Churches are, oh my gosh, I don't know what it is about churches, but it seems like they're being impersonated worldwide, not just in, the US.
I actually think that one makes sense from a hacker or from like a bad person standpoint, and it bothers me that my brain so quickly figured that out. I must spend a lot of time talking hacking and cybersecurity that I so quickly got there. But most church websites now will let you make an electronic donation. And so if you're impersonating a church website and someone makes an electronic donation to their church, you get that directly.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Well, and think about what a church that is in the know, that knows that these other websites are out there that could be impersonating them. All they'd have to do is put in the bottom of their bulletin, their church bulletin, these are not us, and list them. Do not give money to these churches. It's not us.
Yep.
And they've got it covered. So.
Wow. Well, I just love that. And as we were talking before, I was like, I will definitely mention these. And then as you were explaining that a bit more, I'm like, this hits our standards almost word for word to take students through that and let them see it. So how stinking cool to let them get to see those. And they're definitely things I will be pulling up, and this ImmunoWeb as well. Just awesome for them to get to see those and explore those. So thank you for sharing that.
And if you want them to take like a link in an email and see where it actually goes safely, you can have them right click and copy that link and put it in Checkfish, CheckPhish.ai. And it will, if the website hasn't already been taken down, it will show them a landing page. So we did this just a few weeks ago, and it ended up going to a Microsoft phishing website that wasn't Microsoft. I've seen it go to McAfee. That isn't McAfee. And you can it gives you the IP address on Checkfish. So you can take that IP address and say, where is this IP address? Who is this IP address? I've actually traced them back to St. Petersburg, Russia. And you can get down to Google Map and see that it is a government building. So it's a state-sponsored hacker. So you can actually, you can actually find out who this is, where this link goes, and who owns it, and try to get back to it. And not every example, a lot of times that they've already been taken down, but every once in a while you get lucky. Maybe, once a month you would get lucky and find something and be able to have that analysis for your class.
How cool. I just love and how cool to like show kids that so that they could go home and be looking at that because you know they would. They would be so excited to be able to go look at that, even for the one time that they find one. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I
I
have
just
screen prints of some of the ones that we've got. So if you need examples for class, just email me at laurab@cyberwyoming.org, and I can email you some of the ones that we've seen for the McAfee one is the one that went to Russia.
how cool. And we will make sure that that's in our notes of this video and our podcast so that folks can get in touch with you. And of course, we'll make sure that the links to the Cyber Wyoming site and the teacher resources are all there as well because we want people to be able to find these because these are incredible. Um, Laura, tell us how you got into the IT field and how did you end up here to get to share all of this incredible stuff with us?
It was a roundabout journey. I did graduate from UW, go Pokes. Um, and uh, and so that was awesome. I graduated with a marketing degree. I didn't have a computer science degree. In fact, when I graduated, and this is dating me, you can see my gray hair, okay? But this is dating me. We didn't have the internet.
Mm. Uh-huh.
So if you wanted to email somebody at another university, you used something called the VAX system. We did have that, but it wasn't email between businesses. You were still on the regular mail. So that shows you how old I am. But I graduated from UW and I went and got my master's degree, my MBA. So it was still not in computer science at Texas Tech University. And out of Texas Tech, I got recruited by a risk management software development company. And that's where I first started in computer science. So I had to learn risk management. I had to get my degree in that on my own, just studying on the side for that company. But at the same time, I was learning a little bit of COBOL and some of the older programming languages from the mainframe version. Eventually, I mean, technology was moving so fast at that time. Eventually, I ended up being a data reporting manager there on one of the first warehouses in West Texas. So that was really kind of neat. The first data warehouse and first Oracle database and learning SQL and all that kind of stuff. That was a lot of fun. And it was all for risk analysis. Um, and then I decided I needed to move home. Texas wasn't for us, and we needed to get closer to family. So we moved back to the Front Range and we lived in Denver for quite a few years. And I worked for Jefferson Center for Mental Health while I was there. And I was there when Columbine, the school shooting, hit at Jefferson Center for Mental Health. And that was life-changing. And I think it was life-changing because I saw how all these mental health professionals and caseworkers changed their day-to-day life to help all the victims. There was so much psychic trauma there and psychology trauma. And as you can imagine, it was pretty awful to walk through that. But I got to work at Jefferson Center for Mental Health with the psychologists and the social workers and the caseworkers. And I learned how to translate the world of programming to the business speak. And that's really probably one of the best skills I've ever learned. And from that point forward, you know, I designed the first juvenile assessment center database. I have worked at IHS Group, which was engineering specs and standards. You might hear them sometimes quoted on National Public Radio with any sort of statistics. And you know, there's just so many things that you can do if you get into computer science. I was a business analyst. I was a project manager. I was a programmer. I was this translator person. I worked with the testing people to create use cases and to design. And so, you know, for all of you young women out there in school, one of the things I just want to tell you is that it's not just sitting in front of a computer and programming all day. That's the really big thing. It's not that. It's talking to others because you have to know their industry and their business like really well, really in depth before you can actually program anything. And that's the part that I think women are really good at. So we're good at creating those relationships.
Yes, we are. Oh, I love that. I love that so much. I am a Colorado native myself, so I was young, but also in Colorado during the time of Columbine, so that gave me chills. I remember that very well. So I can't imagine being in the mental health field during that time in Colorado, especially on the Front Range.
Mhm.
So good for you, and what a trajectory that probably took your career on. How incredible.
Yeah, it really made me want to work for nonprofits. Seeing how they responded to that. I mean, I did have to go pay bills and not make nonprofit rates for a while, um, but every time I got the chance, I would go back and work for a nonprofit because the mission and the helping people has been huge. And when you're in IT, I mean, if you talk to IT guys, like the typical white male IT guy, you ask them why they're in it. It's not always because they like the devices and the tech. A lot of times they like being the hero. They like getting
Yeah,
that computer working
yeah.
for
They
you.
like they like to help people.
They like to help
Yes.
people, but they may not articulate it quite as well.
No, because they're still IT people, right?
Yeah,
I mean, let's be
yeah,
fair. Yes.
yeah, exactly. So we do
Yes.
need more women in this field, and I would love to encourage other women to get
Mhm.
into it.
I love that. What are the most common cybersecurity threats that individuals and organizations face today?
Human mistakes. And human negligence. I mean, really, the top 5
Mm.
breach sources, every year for the past several years have been human-based. So, it's usually phishing, or they didn't have two-factor authentication on their Facebook account and it got taken over, or Instagram or Snapchat or whatever. Um, Maybe they reused passwords across websites, and they use the same password on their bank account as they did on their Walmart account. And so now somebody hacked their Walmart account and can get into their bank account and lock them out. So it's always something like that. It's the small decisions that we make every day. Like I'm going to share my Google Drive and I'm not going to clean it up for 3 years. That's a small decision that we make every day, right? And I think a lot of us have done that. And I can tell you, I've been spending half the day today cleaning up my Google Drive because it's been a while since I've done it.
Yes. Yes.
So we all do this, but we need to make a little bit of time and say, what's the one thing I can do this month to make myself more secure? Whether that's I'm going to start, um, I'm going to clean up my Google Drive, or I'm going to start using the Opera browser because it has a built-in VPN and I don't have a firewall at home and I want to make sure I'm secure when I'm checking my bank accounts. Um, I'm going to put two-factor authentication on my Gmail account. What's the one thing I can do each month? And that will help with the human factor.
I love every part of that because my students and I are always talking about the idea that first of all that the weakest link of any company is indeed the humans.
Mhm.
And that sounds so harsh, but it's the truth. Like if there is going to be a security breach, it's undoubtedly going to come from a human error somewhere. And it's going to be someone reused their passwords or something in that way. But that is the other piece that I tell them, like, you don't have to fix it all at once. Make little changes. Like, it's okay if you fix a password on a website once a month until you get them all fixed, or change to two-factor authentication one at a time until you have them all fixed. It doesn't have to be all at once, but that idea of 1% better every day, you get 1% better in your security practices. It's just that. So
Yep,
I really like how you say that. Like, it is humans, but we can make small changes in our day-to-day lives to impact that.
absolutely. And I would love it if our families would sit down and also talk about our wireless router security. At the dinner table, if all of your students, Megan, went home one day and said, "Hey, mom, dad, do you know if we've changed the default password on our wireless router?" I mean, think of what that would do. All of a sudden, 20 more families or 30 more families in your community would be safer.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's so interesting to think about too when we know that it's like the human factor. And it's something that I obviously in my position as a computer science teacher, I'm passionate about it, but I feel really strongly that everyone should have a computer science course of some kind before they leave school at this point. Like I just feel very passionate about that and at the high school level, truly. For the very like when I tell people just for any other reason, it's cybersecurity pieces so that I can give you that very basic idea of how you keep yourself and your company safer. because it's in every business and it's everywhere. And I think of our conversations and I'm like, man, kind of feel like their parents need to be hearing this too, and their grandparents. And so you're right. If those conversations are happening at a dinner table, how powerful that is.
Absolutely. I mean, we should be talking about money at the dinner table. Why shouldn't we be talking about our security at the dinner table? And I just visited my daughter and I said, hey, I think I'm going to buy a family password manager for us. You'll have it. My son will have it. My husband will have it, but we'll be able to share our passwords securely through that. So if you need the Hulu password again, you won't have to call me.
Yeah.
But also, if something happens to me, then my passwords will pass over to my husband. And so it's also really good for succession planning in a family if something happens.
I'm so glad you just said that as someone who worries about that with a spouse, right? And mine are very not safely saved on a Google Drive document because a couple years ago that was the best option we had, right? I was like, well, we have to have something in place, but that's better than nothing. So I love that idea. Thank you.
Yeah,
A
you're
family
welcome.
password manager, obviously.
Well, and there's so many different brands out there. We actually have videos on each one so you can kind of see, but I think I'm going to pick Bitwarden because it's $40 for an entire year for the family, for the
Oh,
entire family. That's not $40 per
easy.
person. It's $40 for 6 seats in a family.
I love that.
I
Yay.
mean,
Okay, I
yeah,
love that.
right. And there's others that are just as inexpensive, but I know that one, and I've enjoyed using that for work. So,
See, and those are the things. And this leads us so perfectly. So, how can educators and parents teach children about cybersecurity and online safety?
well, I think for the family and parents and educators, one of the things is don't give up that family password. You had a family password for if a stranger needed to come pick you up because of an emergency at the bus stop. Don't give it up. Make sure the grandparents know about it too, because that grandparent scam with the grandkids calling and the artificial intelligence, and it sounds like the grandkids, um, that is something that the grandparent could just say, "What's our family password?" And if they don't know that it's green spaghetti, then it's not, yeah, it's not going to happen. And it takes the drama out of those calls for both the seniors and the rest of the family that might be in a panic for an emergency situation that doesn't actually exist.
Absolutely. I very, very recently, as in the last 2 weeks, taught that exact thing to my family. I have a getting much elderly great grandma or grandma, and my children's great grandma. And I was like, we have to have a family password. For no other reason than grandma has to stop calling me and asking me if the credit card company is actually who's calling her,
Mhm.
or if I am who's calling her from jail. Because never, grandma, in 33 years have I been arrested, but thank you for still wanting to bail me out. And I think it's that simple, right? I was like, you guys, you have to have a family password with each other because this is becoming a real thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and make sure it's nothing on social media that they could guess. That's the other thing. If it goes back to a family story that you shared on social media, don't use it.
Can't be that.
Yeah, it
Yes,
can't be that.
yes, I love that. Laura, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. And just, I feel like you are just absolutely a wealth of knowledge. Every time I get the emails from your team or anything Cyber Wyoming, and then sitting here, I've written down more things than I can even imagine for myself and my classes. So thank you. You're absolutely a wealth of knowledge. We will have the cyberwyoming.org website posted. We'll make sure your email address is posted so folks can reach out. Um, and will there be a place that we can share those slides that you just shared with us on here?
Sure, I'd be happy to share those with you, and I'll send them to you right after the call. And then the other thing is, some educators have been starting to borrow our No Think training awareness. It's really designed for business, but you could pick and choose what you wanted. We have it on um, phishing, passwords, remote work, and 12 individual risk factors it's cyber psychology. And I do know a couple of educators that have downloaded it and used it in their class, but I don't know how they're using it in their class because it's fairly new. Um, but it has a poster, it has a couple of discussions or games, and it has email tips that you can give out throughout the month. So they're kind of designed for a month. So if you had a 9-month period, you could do 9 months of it if you wanted as part of your class curriculum. And, if it doesn't apply, just skip that lesson and go to the next one. But
Right.
those are free. So to anybody in Wyoming. So
Awesome.
yeah, so feel free to use them also. It really was more for the business, but when I saw the educators were starting to download it, just a few, I thought, maybe I should mention it today.
Yes, I'm glad you did. And thank you. Truly, thank you so much. Quick reminder to all of our listeners, please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can stay up to date with all the things that we have going on in our state with computer science and all the things we have going on at CSTA. We're hoping to see you all this year, June 10th through the 13th. Very exciting. We are going to be joining the WACD Summer Conference this year. So CSTA Wyoming will be providing 3 days of computer science PD for you there. And that will be in Laramie this year. And if you have any cybersecurity resources that you would like to share with the rest of us, please reach out. We would love to shoot those out. The more people we can provide this information to, the safer we all become. So thank you.